Hi, and welcome to Knowing You Being You. This is a series of transformative interviews with changemakers that was set up by Polly Hearsey, who I have the pleasure of interviewing today, turning the tables on Polly. She's the founder of these conversational interviews and is very often in the background because she listens intensely. And now it's time to turn those tables and for us to listen to Polly. Welcome, Polly, to your interview.
Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure to be able to turn the tables because I see you and I've known you for quite a while through the collaborative Conscious Collaborators group that we're working in. And we're very similar in the way we work, but you've got so much information, you've got so much expression. And I'm delighted to be able to give you the opportunity to express yourself because you're so used to allowing others to express themselves. So I'd like to start, Polly, but just give us a little bit of background. Where do you come from? What planet are you from? How did you start out in life? And what's your experience?
Well, I think that's really interesting because one of the things that often we don't do is we don't actually turn and look at ourselves. And it really wasn't until I started working for myself that I did turn and look at myself, and that's a journey, as you know, that we all have to go on. And I realized that I had been the one in school who was always getting into trouble for trying to be an individual. That's how I perceived it. It was perceived as me being a troublemaker, but I was always trying to be myself. But I was actually very, very shy as a child. By the time I was 8, I'd been in 3 different schools. I was never settled for long enough to get to know people. And so I was always trying to find myself. I was never centered in who I was. I had no real sense of identity. But I was constantly pushing for it. But I was very, very shy. And I went to university and I did an English and drama degree, which sort of seemed like a good idea at the time. And then I got to the end of that and just went, right, now I want to go off and do an environmental management master's. And I remember my English tutor saying to me, what's that got to do with English? And I was utterly mystified by this question. It was like, where's that question? I couldn't understand where the question had come from. But anyway, I went off and did that. And then I decided that obviously I was going to be an environmental consultant. But the universe had completely different ideas. And I ended up doing, my first job was as a community development worker. Now, this was actually my nemesis job on many fronts because I was so shy, I had to go out and talk to people. People I'd never met before in random places. And it was just like, and I remember when I realized this, that I'd accepted the job and I was about to start it, I just remember the color draining from my entire being. It's like, oh God, what am I going to do? It was the most terrifying thing. And it was also the most immense blessing. But I managed to do it initially by putting on a mask and, that was fine, but that gradually slipped and I began to be myself. But that was only part of my job. And the other part of my job was whatever my host organization needed me to do. So being a charity, it was a bit of this and a bit of that. And I was doing fundraising and I was doing a bit of publicity, and then that grew and snowballed. And I ended up doing marketing, which I suddenly realized I was doing marketing in an environmental organization. I'd finally joined the 2 parts of where I was coming from. And I went, yeah, I really, really enjoy this. But those 10 years that I spent doing community development work, I was privileged to go into some of the most deprived communities and see human spirit at its finest. People absolutely determined to overcome everything in their path to make their life better. I was also paid to go off and see some of the most naturally beautiful parts of our country, which was immense privilege. So I had a wonderful time doing that. But you have to change, and you have to grow. And the marketing side of it really caught it caught my soul, really, because it was allowing me the way to allow others to share their story. So I never saw it as a as a direct thing to sales. It was never that, because I was doing public affairs. I was doing lobbying with as ministers and stuff like that. And so I was there trying to promote a cause.
Beautiful.
And you do that through human stories. You do with charities. So that was really interesting. But then I had to move on again because as things changed. And finally, I sort of left that. And the door that opened to me was to run a service for homeless families. And I was like, it took me years to work out the relevance of that. I mean, I was so out of my comfort zone. I mean, that's one thing I did learn about myself, sort of like reconfirmed about myself, is I can jump into the most uncomfortable situations and discover that I can swim.
Yeah.
But again, I got to see a darker side of people's situations, but I also got to see the resilience, and I got to see. I was so privileged to work with a team of people who would go in and pull people back from the brink and give their all and put themselves into their work in a way that I don't know. I think, when you just go into the office every day, you wouldn't understand, wouldn't be able to quite grasp the extent of personal reserves that go into walking into a room with somebody who is on the verge of committing suicide and giving them hope and bringing them back.
Yeah. So you've really sort of been right bang in the center of every situation of light and dark, and seeing both sides right from the beginning.
Yeah. And it was never my intention to stay that long doing that. But as you do, I stayed with it for 6 years, and then government funding cuts and everything, we lost our contract and we were made redundant. And I was like, by that point, I was like, now what do I want to do? And I spent the best part of a year pretending that I wanted to get jobs. But honestly, every opportunity that came up left me with a suffocating feeling. It wasn't what I was meant to be doing. And it took me time to sort of like get the courage up to say, okay, I'm going to work for myself. It was a bit, I mean, I know how big that it is. It's pretty terrifying. Yeah. And it's not just terrifying for you, it's terrifying for the people around you who want security.
Yeah.
But actually, no job is secure. And I was working in the charity, with charities, and that's so unsecure now.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought, what I really want to do, I want to come back to marketing, but I don't want to do what I was doing before. I had seen that resilience of the human spirit. I had seen that desire for people to take themselves on a journey. So I wanted to work with small businesses, and that's just basically evolved and changed. And also the depth that I go to has evolved and changed. So now I'm understanding that it's not what's on the surface, it's what's within that we have to bring forward. And working with that is the path to all the other stuff. So
yeah,
that's I've sort of like, it's taken me time to understand that. But it all comes down to being who you truly are.
Mm-hmm. In order to do that, in order to help people in that, you've got to do that for yourself first, right?
You do, and that's the hard bits.
Yeah.
But having been through that myself, then that gives me the ability, and having done that with so many different people in different situations as well. Exactly. Guiding them.
Like as you said, you're putting yourself on the front line. It's not just from behind a screen and thinking from a theory book or a degree course that this is what it is. It's actually knowing the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding that, and I think that the thing that's really come to the fore for me is, although I'd always intuitively understood it, is that you're so unique as an individual. And we don't think that because we define ourselves by what we do.
Yeah.
So, I do this or I do that. I am a firefighter or I'm a Reiki practitioner. That's how we define ourselves, but that's not who we are.
Yeah.
And it is who we are. And there's such a treasure to be so unique. And yet we're so hard on ourselves and we think so poorly of ourselves that we don't ever allow ourselves to say, I'm really good at that.
And to give ourselves permission, as you say, allow it. We're never given permission to just be. when we're
No.
brought up as kids and stuff. You have to be do. So in fact, as we're coming to a transformational period in our history on the planet, you're nearly opening everything up, and you're being a pioneer on that marketing front to say to people, you have to give yourself permission, and it's okay to be who you are, to express who you are. It's okay, and I'm here to hold you in that. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. And it's the scariest thing in the world to express yourself.
yeah.
It really is, because you're frightened of what's going to come out. Will I like what comes out? Will I be able to control what comes out? All of those things are going through your head, and you think, this is really scary. And also, we've been so conditioned to conform that we don't know what is truly us. And as you said, when we're children, we're not given permission, but it's all about giving yourself permission.
Yeah.
And that's a big transformation to make. Everything is about internalizing your power.
Yeah.
By, and then bringing that out to the world. And then then when you can see how you connect to the world, it's not scary. But you can only connect. You said this the other day, and I'd said it as well, that you can only connect to others if you connect to yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seems so obvious to me. And I think it's something that we all kind of carry. It's like, well, why doesn't everybody else get this? Something we're here to hold, maybe.
Yes.
But yeah. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, it's all right.
I was going to ask you then, so how do you typically work with people who want to express themselves and get themselves out in the world?
I ask a lot of questions. If you don't like being asked questions, you don't want to work with me, because I will keep asking the most basic and obvious questions.
Yeah.
It's like, because so much of what the truth of what we need to bring forward is unarticulated. Emotionally and intellectually, it's unarticulated. So you've got to ask the questions, because the surface level, maybe intellectual articulation of it hasn't gone down to the real reason. So, for example, I was talking to a client this week she was saying, well, we all need to be taking action. I said, yeah, but why do we all need to be taking action? And you've got to keep on going with the whys, because ultimately it comes down to, there is a bigger reason why we need to take a why, and it's not just what's in it for me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the massivest shifts that has got to happen.
Yeah.
It's that marketing is not about what's in it for me, and it has been, both what's in it for me and what's in it for you. But it's what's in it for us as a collective. Because if we are not aspiring to have an impact on the collective, and we're only aspiring to have an impact on ourselves, then we are cutting ourselves off from all that we can be, and therefore we will be frustrated.
Yeah. And something came to mind to me recently. I may have mentioned it to you, that I think, that sense of being me, and that wanting to just look after ourselves, is probably stemming from the nature of how we were brought up, that our needs weren't met fully. Our emotional needs weren't met because of humanity and where we were at in the consciousness levels at the time. It's time to get over that, right?
It is time to get over that. And that's when you say that, because I see it slightly differently. And then that's one of that is, to me, is just one of the most beautiful things. I didn't say, I used to do diversity training, and now I'm seeing the why that was so important to where I'm at now, is because it's that subtle shift in perspective on the same issue or the same thing that give us that really rounded appreciation. So if we are completely isolating ourselves, we are denying ourselves multiple perspectives on the potential and possibility of where we can go with our lives.
Yeah.
It's so important to just to allow ourselves to open up. And I think that we have collectively, culturally, been in this energy of just closing it in, protecting it, shutting it down, and turning it around and allowing that to go the other way. Just that's hard work.
Yeah.
And we have to learn to experience it from a different place.
Yeah.
And that sounds so abstract and intellectual, because if you haven't experienced it.
Yeah, you really have to experience it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Seeing things from other people's shoes. You mentioned when we were talking the other day about the stone, that story
Yes.
about, would you like to repeat that story?
Okay, so if you have a stone and you put it in the center of a circle and you get 12 people to stand around it, it could be the most symmetrical stone on the planet, but everybody is seeing a different part of it. And the whole is not, you cannot appreciate the whole from your perspective alone. You need the multiple perspectives to build the whole picture. And that is both, as a recognition of that we are only part of the overall picture, but also we are an essential part of the overall picture. So it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm not as important as those other perspectives. You are absolutely as important as all of those, because without you, the picture isn't complete.
Yeah.
So I say this, the greatest service you can be to humanity, to collective consciousness, everything is to be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Oh, and it's so liberating. It gives so much freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just to be yourself.
Yes.
And as you say, it's that sticking to what's yours, to knowing what's yours to share.
Yeah.
But how do we get there, Polly?
You have to get, the clues are there. The clues are you shouldn't say it in there. The clues are already there. But you have to turn to look at yourself. And you will see that there are patterns of behavior, there are patterns of responses that you've had, or there's a skill set that you've developed, or a way that you've responded in particular situations, or a way that people ask you to respond that you don't think about. You just got to look at every aspect of your life, every aspect of your journey, and you'll start to connect the dots. And when you connect the dots, you start to go, that's what I'm really good at. That's what I shine at. And then it's like, then what really lights you up? So I've been mulling on this one, because I had this phrase come to me, and I was just like trying to unpack it a little bit, which is, are you lighting a fire within you, or outside of you, or underneath you, basically? And so socially, we light a fire underneath us, which in many respects, if we don't have that fire within us, then it's tantamount to coercion, because you're being forced to move. So if you are running a business and you have a coach who is saying, you need to do this and you need to do that, and it is not connecting to you, then it is a fire underneath you. But if you can have that fire within you, it empowers you to act. So you've got all of these parts of your life have got to be connected to that central fire. What is it that you will do even when your head is telling you not to go and do it?
Yeah.
Or, your heart just wants, even though your head is telling you it's not even practical. The clues are there.
Yeah.
And then it's a question of putting it all together and saying, well, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. And at the start, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. Then you play. Yeah. And you explore and you refine. And that's exactly the journey I've been on since I started my business. I started off thinking I was going to do one thing, and then it just kept on tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. And then I was brave enough to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
When did you know? When did you know? What did it feel like when you said that to yourself?
Terrifying and liberating at the same time. I do love a good paradox.
Where did you feel it? Somewhere in your body? How did you, was it in your head? Was it in your heart? What did you know?
Where did I feel it? Well, I always feel the fear in my stomach. That's always been my place, but it's also the place where the power comes from. So it's probably in the same place, but it's very hard to describe, but it's almost like two sets of energy running in opposite directions. So simultaneously.
You've been good at holding that central force between the two. I mean, well, that's been your experience.
The fear wins sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But that is interesting that you said about holding that, because that's exactly what came to me this morning in meditation. Was that there's a spin, almost like a spinning vortex around you, but there's a stillness that goes all the way through it. And you can be absolutely still while all of that is happening around you and allowing your energy to express itself into the world. But you've got to hold that core, because it's very easy to be pulled one way or pulled the other. But we have to, that to me, that is that finding that essence. It is finding what it is that you're here to really shine at, that gives you that core, so that you don't get pulled here and you don't get pulled there.
Were you meditating already at the time that when you said, that's what I'm here to do? Had you started meditating?
I hadn't started daily meditation, no. I mean, not in a conscious way. So I now have a practice of every morning, and I get pretty grumpy if I don't get to do it. But I wasn't. But I was meditating because in my own way. So because I I'm always in deep thought, but I was very much. What stopped it and what slowed the process up was being in my head. That for me, the biggest thing has been learning to get out of my head. And that was because I was approaching that from my head. Trying to learn how to get out of my head by thinking about the need to get out of my head was a vicious loop. So that's been the biggest transition for me, is to actually just switch the head off and just come from the heart.
And so let's come back to that point where you said, this is what I'm here to do. You felt that complete fear, you said, but excitement at the same time.
Yeah.
And what was it that triggered that?
Do you know what? I have no idea. But and I think that's because it's the accumulation of stuff. And it's like, it can be the slightest thing that drops into place.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden you've got the whole picture. I've always had this thing ever since I started working for myself about jigsaw puzzles, and like the last missing piece, or that you're creating your own pictures. Like jigsaw puzzles just come back and again and again and again. And it's like that. It's like you start to build the picture, however makes sense to you, and everybody will do it differently. And then finally you get that last piece that probably isn't the last piece, by the way, but but you get that piece and you suddenly go, and it's always just like that. Right. Okay, well that makes sense. It's, I had my soul languages done not very long ago, and that was really interesting, and it made perfect sense. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it went, okay, yeah, no, that makes total sense. I knew it was going to be something around mediation, arbitration, because that's what I've always done. I've always seen both sides of the story and asked people to plot a course that allows for both of those to exist. So I knew it was going to be something like that. But when it came in, I was just like, okay. So I can work with that now. And it's, it's all those little bits. And that's why collaboration is so important to me, because I will never promise people results, because I don't feel comfortable myself taking the credit for something that I know has been a journey of 1,000 steps.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's that last bit. I might be the person who puts that last bit into place. I might be the person who puts just another block in the place, but the whole journey is the thing.
Beautiful.
And there's no start and there's no end. Sorry.
No, it's true. And so often people do want to take credit for I did this. Yeah, great. Next. But it's very reassuring for people to know that we don't have to have the whole picture straight away. It's just one step at a time, and that's all we can see, because the bigger picture can be so overwhelming when we try to figure everything out in the one go.
It's interesting, because it's scary, because I can't see all the pieces, and then we end up into trying to control it, and in controlling it we cut ourselves off to opportunities. But at the flip side, if you don't allow yourself and give yourself permission to see the furthest point that you can go to, which is beyond what you think is possible, beyond what your head is telling you, but what you really want. If you don't allow yourself to feel that far forward, you will always control the steps as far as you can see, and cut yourself off. And then you're into linear sight instead of fractal.
Yeah.
Now, obviously that makes sense to you and me when we're talking about it.
You can't see around the corner.
Yeah.
You have to allow the magic to unfold.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really important.
But we've been taught, and I mean, we both, totally live in fractal language and spirals. I'm born with them.
Yeah. I'm really not. I'm born linear.
It's in your heart. But anyway, we are actually brought up to think in a linear fashion. That is what the world is based on. Well, not the world.
No.
The system, I suppose, what we've been taught, the system of control. We write in lines, everything is linear. But when we look to nature, that spiral formation is everywhere. That's what it's based on.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what you're opening up to people, is to reconnect with their true nature, literally.
Yeah. And we're cyclical, and we're not linear in the slightest. And, so many people that I work with and connect with are multi-passionate. Well, and yet our society says, focus, concentrate. This is the root. And yet, why are you multi-passionate? There's a good reason you are multi-passionate, because it's enriching who you are and enriching what you can bring.
Yeah.
So why on earth would you want to exclude all of those things? You don't need to exclude them, because there is a common thread to all of them, which is you. So layer them up in terms of what you bring out to the world.
Yeah.
Don't cut them off, because they are a core part of you. And it doesn't matter whether it's, skills that you've learned for your business, or it's skills that you've learned for your life. I mean, if you are a demon cake decorator, if that's a skill you've got, but you bookkeeper, I bet you put some nice little swells on your bookkeeping, but you're gonna, there's something that you've learned about the discipline of doing that you will apply in other areas of your life. You will apply it in work. You will apply it in your home life. It's all relevant. It's all about you. And that is the thing. You will find in your life that there are little ways where your soul is expressing itself on your behalf. And if you just acknowledge it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And if anybody says to me, well, and they do all the time, I'm not creative.
You were born, you created your own body.
There's that. And you are always creative. It's just we have this horribly narrow definition of what creativity is. But a poet, an artist, an actor, we consider them to be creative because what they are bringing forward comes from within. They are having to tap into their inner resources and their soul in order to bring that expression forward. The process can be applied to any part of your life. Yeah. So your soul expression may be about creating a home, or it may be about creating a global movement. It doesn't matter. That is your soul expression, and the impact. Now, this is a hard one to get your head around. The impact for us all is the same energetically. If you are creating a beautiful, stable home life for your family, the energetic impact of that is as great as somebody who is doing work visibly on a global level.
I get that.
It's the same. So your soul expression is what you're here to do, and your soul expression is the most important thing you can do with your life.
Yeah.
To never feel guilty.
Answering that call of expressing what your individual soul wants to express.
Yeah.
No matter what that is, you're answering that call and thereby creating another chink in the puzzle of the whole, to help everybody create and express themselves.
And so when we feel so insignificant and small in the face of everything that's going on around us, just remember that you have your part to play.
Yeah.
You are that person standing in front of the stone, you know, you're creating the whole picture.
Beautiful.
And, you know, and your part is so valuable. So appreciate yourself and allow yourself to express.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's so liberating, Polly, and so positively inspiring, you know, to listen to you and to be able to give ourselves permission like that, and to know there's someone like you in the world helping others to actually tune into that and to tap into that. Wow. How can people find you, Polly?
Well, they can go up above and go on my website, or find me on or find me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. I mean, I am actually everywhere, but the blessing of having my name is that I am pretty much the only one.
Unique. Yeah.
So and so therefore you just have to punch it into Google or whatever, and you will find me somewhere.
Yeah, brilliant. And you work with people in all fashions, by Skype, by phone, any which way.
Yeah, I've got face-to-face clients. I do, but most of my work is online. But because actually everyone who's at the point where they need to work with me is all over the world, so which is lovely.
I'm wondering when you're going to start delivering your workshops.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I need to start working on that. Well, I'm actually I am planning to do some stuff in the autumn. I think I will start in well, it'd probably be October, because I'm actually working on collaborative work at the moment. So I am bringing forward collaborative programs. So I have got one this week. We're starting, and I've got three in. I've got three in the works. So one this week, and then I've got another one that is an ongoing program, and then in September I will be running something as well collaboratively. So that's what I've been focusing on.
It's all about collaboration with you anyway.
It is my year of collaboration, because I believe that's the way it needs to go. But I am going to start doing interactive workshops probably in October.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Yes.
Look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
Excellent, Polly. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to allow you to express yourself to everybody else. And thanks. And
thank you for taking your time. I really appreciate taking your time to interview me.
No problem. Well, it's just when you interviewed me, I'm like, well, who's interviewing Polly?
Yeah, I'd overlooked that bit.
Yeah, so yeah, it's great. It's a collaboration, right?
It is. It is. So thank you so much.
No problem.